What's up, friends? It's me, Raj, and I'm back with another movie review. So today we're going to be checking out a brand new Netflix film that just came out in 2021 called He's All That. So He's All That is a film with a runtime of about an hour and 31 minutes, and it's directed by Mark Waters. So He's All That is in the headlines currently for one main reason, and that's that it stars the brand new actress and TikTok star Addison Rae. So I'll get to a little bit more about Addison's performance and what I think about her in this film a little bit later in this review. But first, to start off with, what even is He's All That all about? So He's All That is a film that focuses on the life of Paget, who's an online influencer and high schooler who, after an unfortunate incident with her boyfriend where she's kind of publicly disgraced, she hatches a plan to essentially create a new perfect boyfriend for herself by finding an unpopular or generally looked down upon student in the school and essentially transforming them into an influencer, into someone that people look up to, someone that people aspire to be. So she does this for two main reasons. One, to reestablish her presence as an influencer, to showcase that she can transform somebody and make them popular, show her influence as an influencer essentially. But beyond that, she also wants to create a new perfect boyfriend to replace her ex. So Addison Rae stars as Paget, the main character, and right off the bat, starting off with if the film's engaging or not, it's pretty predictable. What I mean by that is, based off the description I just gave you about what the film's about, I think you probably already have a good chance of knowing exactly what's going to go down in this film. And how you predict it is exactly how it goes down. There are no twists and turns. There's nothing necessarily fresh or new about this film that you probably might not have seen in any other teen, drama, romantic comedy type films before. The premise is relatively unique where, we haven't necessarily had films in the past about transforming someone else, but there has been a lot of similar films that tread on the same lines, and this film really doesn't push any boundaries and really doesn't make anything that's super unique or super interesting. Beyond that, this film has a very unique editing style, and I'm curious if you guys catch this, so let me know in the comments below if you do notice this and if this irks you as much as it caught my attention. But the editing style is so rapid and choppy, and what I mean by that is essentially an actor will be talking, and right as they're done talking, it'll flip to another actor. And back and forth and back and forth. Scenes transition rapidly, and there's really not any space for mulling over what just happened. There's no space for the audience to process what's going down. It's very rapid, very fast-paced, and I think that was done for one of two reasons. One, either the cast was just inexperienced enough to where the editor had to piece it together this way to make the dialogue flow. That's one option. The other is maybe they purposefully tried this type of editing style because the new age of rapid information and the new generation essentially requiring things to happen rapidly in order to stay interested. Maybe they were trading those lines and trying to make this film really fast-paced so that it appeals to the young audience. Whatever their reasoning, however, I don't think it really helped the film, and I think if anything it took away from the film, as it makes the film a little bit more detached and doesn't make you feel like you're there with the characters. It doesn't make you feel like you're going through this experience with Paget and her friends, but instead it just makes you feel like you're watching a bunch of people do this, and it's just not as meaningful. Beyond that, the script in this film is subpar. I mean, the dialogue is very basic. There's really no nuance to it. The characters are very one-dimensional, and I'll talk a little bit more about the characters in a second, but essentially, don't really expect too much out of them. A lot of them are very stereotypical. Now, a younger audience might not find this script and dialogue to be too annoying because maybe they just don't have, as much of a refined taste. But if you are someone who considers themselves to have a refined taste in film, somebody who requires their films to be of a higher level or higher degree of quality, this film might not be for you, as I would highly recommend going into the film with very low expectations. Then and only then would you probably be blown away, or at least satisfied. Now, one thing I will give this film credit for is for crafting their bad guy. The bad guy in this film, you're gonna really hate him. So I guess in that sense, he serves his purpose, right? every time something bad happens to him, every time he messes up, every time he gets punked, I don't know, I had a huge smile on my face, so that's one positive as to what they did right. Moving on to the characters, as I mentioned before, don't really expect too much. I mean, a lot of them are stereotypical, a lot of them don't evolve over time, they're not well developed, they don't have backgrounds or anything like that. You know, it's characters that you would expect in a high school. You know, don't get me wrong, they're relatively realistic, but they're also so one-dimensional that it's like, there's not much to look at, there's not much to connect with. So, going back to that point of, it makes you really feel like you're watching these characters go through this without actually feeling like you're being there, or without actually feeling connected to them, and I found that to be a negative aspect of this film. In addition to that, the acting in this film is relatively poor. I mean, you're gonna be able to tell actors are phoning it in. It's kind of obvious that these are relatively novice actors, which is fine. Not every film can have fantastic actors and actresses. You know, people have to start somewhere. It makes sense, it's fine. And it's survivable. If you really, again, as I said before, don't have a refined taste or haven't watched a ton of film, it's fine, it'll suffice. But if you actually are an actor or actress, or you're interested in those industries, or you're experienced in anything to do with that realm, you're gonna see through these performances pretty quickly. And that brings me to Addison Rae herself. So she's currently the queen of TikTok. And a quick side rant, honestly, I have nothing against Addison Rae. I find her to be a pretty awesome person, to be honest. A lot of famous people, a lot of influencers, once they get their fame, once they blow up, they kind of get a big head and they start to go on rants about how amazing they are, or they just become super conceited and arrogant. Addison, on the other end, I feel like hasn't done that. She's remained a relatively sweet girl. She's exploring, you know, the world of influencers and fame and stuff like that, hanging out with the Kardashians all the time and stuff like that. But she still remains down to earth and pretty chill, not gonna lie. All the interviews I've seen of other influencers who talk about Addison and their interaction with her, everyone says she's super sweet and super nice and very genuine, so I respect her for that. I respect her for not becoming fake like half of Hollywood. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean she's destined to become an actress. She is a novice, so I will give her credit for that, and I won't go too hard on her, but I will say you can really tell in this film that she's a little bit out of her element. It really feels like she's just reading dialogue in these scenes instead of acting the part of Paget. But I think over time, as she, you know, does more roles, as she becomes a better actor, maybe if she takes a couple classes and so on and so forth, maybe she'll become better. In this film, I think they really shoehorned her in solely because of her popularity as a TikTok star, and I think that might have been a negative aspect of this film, unfortunately. Now, moving on to what's unique about this film, I will say they have a fantastic song choice. There's a lot of pop, vibey tunes in this film that you can easily pick up and add to any upbeat playlist. There is also a surprise visit from Kourtney Kardashian. Now, she does a great job. She's only in it for like barely any time, but for the time she's in, she does a great job, and it's cool to see a Kardashian on the big screen. This film also has relatively cool insights about the life of an influencer and how shallow it can be. They're not too deep, and don't expect anything too insane or mind-blowing. It's stuff that most people probably know by now. So all in all, I give He's All That a 2 out of 4. Essentially, you know, if you have the time and if you really can't find anything else to watch, this might be worth checking out. Honestly, the acting is relatively poor, writing is poor, the plot's straightforward. There's not really much going towards this film. You know, you're gonna find a lot more enjoyment out of other romantic comedy films. You're gonna find a lot more drama and insights about influencer lifestyle out of other shows. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this film for everybody, but if you are interested in how Addison Rae does as an actress, if the lives of influencers interest you, if you're looking for a very light romantic comedy, high school teen drama type film that you can just watch while working on something, this might be worth checking out. As always, let me know in the comments below if you do check out He's All That and what you thought about it, if you liked it or not. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this content, and now we'll be moving on to the Parents Guide. So this film is rated TV-14, and there's not really too much content in here to be aware of. In terms of violence, I give this film a 2 out of 5. There's really one fight scene. It's relatively brief, and there's no blood or anything like that. There's also yelling and arguments. It really is relatively light. In terms of sexual content, I give this film a 2.5 out of 5. There's Again, like I said before, not really much sexual content. There's one scene near the beginning, and that's the incident I was discussing earlier, where a character essentially walks in on her ex-boyfriend with someone else. The scene doesn't actually have anything seen. All you see is a character zipping up their pants. It's very brief, and the scene's more focused on the backlash and the outburst after that occurs than what's actually going down. There's also other scenes where characters wear very skimpy outfits that can be relatively revealing. There's also a couple makeout scenes that are relatively brief. There's also a few sexual references that are veiled, so it's not going to be easy to tell that they are references, but the writer does a unique job of putting puns in the dialogue, puns that don't necessarily always work, puns that are not necessarily funny, but they can be very sexual if you think about it deep enough, or if you really like pick apart what's going down. But otherwise, you're probably gonna miss a lot of them, and they're all relatively light and can be taken as jokes anyways, so it's not too bad. Finally, in terms of language, I give this film a 3 out of 5. There's one F word, there are a couple uses of the S word and D word, all very brief, all very light. Really, the primary swear word in this film is one use of the F word. Again, it's not too bad. If your teen or child goes on TikTok, they probably have seen worse by this point. So with all that being said, since there's barely any violence, barely any sexual content, and barely any language in this film, I would say it's relatively appropriate to a little bit of younger audiences. I would say teens can watch this film. In fact, they might be the ones to like this film more than most. I mean, they're probably most familiar with Addison Rae herself. But beyond that, the film's dialogue and script writing and quality overall will probably most appease teens and younger audiences than older audiences who might be a little bit more refined. Either way, as I mentioned before, let me know in the comments below if you do check out He's All That, if you agree with what I said or not. And until next time, I'll catch y'all later.